Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell, and welcome once again to another episode of Thrive, Turning Uncertainty to Competitive Advantage, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to make change and uncertainty actually start to work for you and your business. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce you to our guest, and we are going to dive into today's show. Get a pen, piece of paper, get your computer ready, because you are going to want to take notes. All right, on today's show, we are talking to the one, the only, Janice B. Gordon. She is a customer growth expert. Scale Your Sales is her brand. She's got a process, a system, an incredibly popular podcast. So Janice, I am so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Well, for those few people watching us today that don't know you, give us a little background, in what you do, how you focus on growing customer base, and a little bit about your podcast and your system.
Yes, Scale Your Sales podcast. Your listeners must all go to it. I have excellent guests, you being one of them. I'm having you on twice. That's how good you are. So, yeah, well, it's great because we have a conversation like this, really focused on modern sales, how to be really customer-centric in the way that you develop your sales. And, I was saying to Meredith, it is so hot in here. Because in London we're having a real heat wave. That's where I'm based. And so Scale Your Sales framework focuses on three key elements that we think are absolutely critical to future-proof your growth revenues, and that is retention. Retention is the first one. Many companies really focus on acquisition, which is great. However, if you want to accelerate growth, it's retention, that's where it is. And then also productivity. And this is really focusing on your kind of like Pareto's principle, your top 20 revenue earners that will, create 80% of your revenue. So the top 20, they're your most productive markets and client segments, customers, buyers. So it's understanding who they are. And then the last thing is, we're in a digital world. We're virtual as we are now. And so it's about how do you continue to nurture and engage your customers, your existing customers, and attract new customers. And that's all the kind of social selling that is engaging. How do you go about doing that? How do you go about communicating with your customers, connecting with new relevant influencers, people that can introduce more business to you, and then educating them what's kind of content you put out, and then elevating the relationships into partnerships. So that's attraction. So we've got retention, productivity, and retraction. And that's the whole framework of Scale Your Sales.
I feel like I have seen you everywhere lately. I mean, you just hit the cover of a sales magazine. You've been named really some of the growth experts with a very impressive group of people of who to watch in 2021. What have you been focused on? What's been the key for you of really getting your message out?
I think I've been consistent in my message. And, for me, sales is all about your customers. The sales industry is notorious for being really focused on targets and quotas, and really being focused on product focus. And we talk a lot about being customer centric, but they don't actually do it. And that's my campaign, really, growing your revenues through creating excellent customer experience. So it's customer excellence. If you focus on that, your revenues will grow anyway, and your customers will grow more customers for you. So that's where my focus is. So it's been consistent about the relationship between sales and the customer, giving the customer the experience they want. So that means your organization needs to be customer centric.
Yeah, I've always felt that everybody on your team really needs to be in sales, that you need to think about sales as something that everybody on the team engages in. But how did you get into customer-centric selling? I feel like you started the trend long before it really became a trend. What really tipped you off that this was the path to growth. And I love the fact that you start with retention, because you are so right. Everybody starts with acquisition, and would really love our listeners today to really focus on the fact that Janice said retention first, because if you retain your customers, acquisition is going to be so much easier. But I'll let you dive a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, so what started me on this track, when I started in sales in 1980s, and so I remember at that time you could cold call, a long time ago. And so at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, I'd be standing up and we'd making cold calling on a Tuesday. I didn't like Tuesdays. At 8 o'clock in the evening, cold calling again. So I worked in financial services, and that was my introduction to the whole, remit of sales, enterprise sales. But then after my MBA, I worked with a customer experience consultancy, and that was absolutely mind-blowing. That's when I realized that customers are your best creators and innovators. They're the ones that know if you only ask them. And I thought, so all of my sales experience, we never asked the customer. We weren't interested in what they knew and what they could tell us. All we wanted to do was sell to them. So that's when I realized I needed to be on the other side of this. Sales is core to all businesses, but I need to be on the customer side. So I want to be the customer's champion. And that's what turned everything around for me. And that's why since then, I've been on this campaign to be talking about, you really need to get on board and get close to your customers and really understand their needs. Because if you only ask them, they'll tell you what you want and then you can provide it. Well, I mean, how easy is that? Why don't we do it though?
Yeah, it's funny. I like you, I've been in sales a long time. And one of the funniest things I remember doing is we would do pre-call planning, and we would literally decide everything that was going to happen on the call, including the product we were going to pitch, before we ever talked to the customer. And I think about that now, and I think that is so ridiculous, because the key to sales is just to listen. If you listen, people will tell you exactly what they want, exactly how they want it, exactly when they want it. They're going to tell you exactly how to sell to them. What are some of the biggest challenges you feel like sales professionals and or business owners, anybody who has to sell, they're facing right now?
I think the biggest challenge. Oh, we've got an echo there. I don't.
Not sure what.
Yeah. Suddenly that's come on, hasn't it? Let me turn my volume down a bit. Hopefully that will help. The biggest challenge today is that, the gap between buyers and sellers was this big. Well, now it's this big, really, because we've all experienced the technological adaptation that we've had to do in order to survive over the last 18 months. And the thing is, that just means that, instead of doing this, it's gone like this. Customers have moved so far ahead that sellers are still in catch up. And what you need to do, sellers, whether you're, business owners, you need to leapfrog. You need to take a bit of a punt. You need to decide on, what I do with my clients is, let's focus on where your growth market is. Let's focus on where your sweet spot is, where are the customers that absolutely love what you're doing. They love your product. They absolutely get it. How can we focus on those, grow those, and find more of those? Because often I work with companies and they're spread so thin across different markets, across different product lines and all of this that, it's all about focus now. That's what people, companies, business owners need to do. Really zero in and focus in on what's unique and different about what you do. And I often say what you can do that no one else can do in the way that you do it. Once you've understood what that is, then it's a lot easier to look at, okay, well, who is my ideal customer, my key customer? Who, what does that persona look like? Where do they hang out? How can I get closer to them? So it's really understanding that. And the thing is, you're going to have some of those that are already your customers. So what's the best thing you can do? Go and interview them, go and talk to them, because they will tell you what they like and what they don't like. And you've got to build your business around that sweet spot of customers. And here's the thing, a lot of owners, business owners and companies are really afraid to do this because they don't want to lose anything. But actually what happens, they gain even more because they're really focused in on their message and what's right for their customers. So that's the thing that people need to do, is focus. It's like niche of the niche.
It's funny. It's niching is, especially in an uncertain environment, it sounds counterintuitive, right? I mean, your thought would be, I'll take anybody. I'll take care of anybody. But you need to niche that down, and you need to focus. So assume that. How clear do you need to be on a target market? How descriptive do you need to be? Is it enough to say I focus on financial services, or do you need to get granular into that?
You need to focus on the outcomes, right? So if you focus on what's the unique outcomes that you deliver from your product and your service, then that will dictate, you work backwards from there. So what do your customers say that the things that you deliver, that you uniquely do, or what makes you great? And then find the group of people that have that similar tendencies to have, that you can easily delight. So you can work across different verticals, different sectors, different industries. But what you still need is that sweet spot of the outcome that you can deliver better than anyone else. Once you've got that, then it's a lot easier to ensure that you consistently, and that's the word, consistently delight and deliver what your customers want, because that's what they want, is that outcome. Most companies don't know what that is.
Yeah. I love the fact that you said once you understand the outcome, and once you're really clear on that outcome, then you can start to diversify around industries. Because I think the thing that's so important now about choosing your ideal client, especially given what we've just come through, is that you do diversify your customer base a bit. I mean, nobody in today's marketplace wants to be completely niched into one industry after what happened with COVID. You were either in an industry that got decimated, or you were lucky and you were in an industry that did well, but you're still thinking, gosh, when the next crisis hits, I don't want to be in an industry that is, that I don't want to be all dependent, have all my eggs in one basket, so to speak. So really getting clear on that outcome. So if I'm going to get clear on that outcome, is what you're telling us to do is to choose 10 customers, interview them, see what they say, have no preconceived notions. And from that, whatever is determined from that is the outcome that you deliver.
Yes, it's absolutely that. And so what you said is have been really open-minded, not having an agenda here, not having to drive people to a particular outcome, not trying to get them, square peg to fit in a round hole. Just being this is an investigation. Right? You're a detective and you're trying to find the key, but you don't even know what it looks like, how big it is, and what color it is. So you're asking really open questions and then perhaps going down a path and seeing where that takes you. Then once you've got to some kind of idea, not necessarily conclusions, you will go on to the next top 10 client, and you would start around that point and go even further. That's how you do the kind of investigation. And then once you've got enough data, then you want to sit down and brainstorm around that. But you've got the customer's language, their ways of describing what that outcome is or what that unique thing is. And then looking at, okay, now we understand more about what does that look like internally? What kind of service do I need to provide? What are the processes? What is the product? Do we need to co-create that in a slightly another direction to make sure that we can do this consistently? So it's really being open to the possibilities, absolutely. And if you're co-creating with the customer, well, they're a customer for life, aren't they? Yeah. Because ideally, that's what they want. But in doing this research, you are understanding there is a big enough market there for this sweet spot of what we can do that no one else can do. And there's a big enough market in that we can find more like people that really love this outcome. But the beauty is we can now describe what that is.
And so then what do you do once you have that information, once you've defined it, once you know your outcomes, you understand what you deliver, you understand how you're unique and different. What do you do with that? How do you get that messaging out there? How do you, as you said, look for productivity, nurture and engage, get out there on social media? What do you do with that messaging?
Yeah, well, you've got to make sure that internally all of your products, your processes are aligned. So you've got to be able to deliver this consistently to a high level, right? Because you don't want to disappoint your customers. And so what you do is you have to ensure your business is aligned and around this mission, because it's now becoming a mission, because this is yours. You're like, okay, this is us. I know what we're here for. This is our purpose, our mission. You've got to align all of your people in the business around this. And this is why I say you've got to take a bit of a punt going forward now, in that, once you've decided what your business is, this is it. You're deciding this is your business. And everything, all the people and process and systems are aligned around it. Now you need to get all of those customers, your top 20 customers, on board to this is what it, because there may be some things that you used to sell to them that you're kind of offloading now. But you want to go all in with this one, and you want to, understand that you can double your revenues with this existing customer doing these things. And so, so first of all, you need to make sure you're not losing any of those top 20 customers that are giving you 80% of your revenue. You want to know that you can grow them. Once you're doing that consistently, now you're reaching out through that customer base to help, so they help you to grow more of them. Who can you be introduced to? And you make sure that all of your marketing material, you use their language, but also their testimonials, their success stories, their case studies, all of that. You have got to align yourself all around this success, so that and the experience of success, so your customers are more than willing to refer other like-minded companies to you. Or you can go to other clients that want this type of outcome, and your customers are more than happy to talk to them and give a testimonial around the service, the product, and the processes that you have that are so cutting edge and that deliver that competitive advantage, not only for you but also for your customer.
So in essence, the way that you scale your sales is to understand the messaging, then go through your existing customer base to actually acquire, grow new business, find new opportunities, because then you're finding opportunities of customers that are just like your top 10 customers.
Absolutely. It's understanding the outcome, really understanding the outcome that delights your customer and the thing that you can uniquely do, because that will create your competitive advantage.
Is the outcome that you deliver, when you go through this process with most clients, is it surprising to most when they figure out what the outcome is? It's not what they expected it was?
Yeah. Yeah, because often they're thinking of the big thing. And actually, customers, it's often those little things. That's the things that they value. Yeah. And so it's almost like when people say, well, you're really good at that. And you're saying, no, I'm not. And it's like, no, you really are. And you're thinking, well, that's really easy for me to do. Yeah. We can all resonate with them. Companies are exactly the same. The things that your customers value are not necessarily the things that you're valuing. And that's the danger here. You value them. That's what you're pushing. That's what you're selling. But it's actually not what the customer values and what they want. And that's why being really outcome focused is so important, and understanding that what that outcome is from the customer's point of view.
Is that's really what makes the difference. I think one of the most powerful things you said is to really use their language, and it's about their outcome, not about your outcome. If I have to see one painful thing that I see salespeople do, is they're selling the wrong thing. And when you sell the wrong thing, you have the right thing, but you're so bent to sell what you think is important, and it's not what the customer wants, and it's not what the customer needs. Janice, it is hard to believe, but we have about come to the end of this podcast. And I always like to finish with two very important questions. Number one is, how do people get a hold of you? How do they listen to the podcast? How do they find out about, more about Scale Your Sales? The other is, what is your biggest piece of advice to our audience? People out there that looking to sell in an uncertain marketplace, grow in an uncertain marketplace. What is your biggest piece of advice?
Okay, so get get hold of me, LinkedIn, Janice B. Gordon. But if you put in Janice B. Gordon on Google, I come up all over. Scaleyoursales.co.uk is the website. JaniceBGordon.com is my speaker website. But Scale Your Sales, please go on to iTunes, have a listen if you like. Please subscribe, rate, and review. But it's also on my YouTube channel, which you will find through Google. So, it's the video show as well. So if you prefer to watch the caption video, you can get it there. So I would love to hear from your listeners. Please say that you saw me here with Meridith. It's always great to know how you find me. But in terms of, my top tip, is to look after your existing customers, interview your existing customers. And this is the time when you really need to do it because they're having a challenging time as well. And of course, there's some companies that are really booming if you're in the, certain industries, but that won't last forever, So it's really important to use this opportunity to touch base with your customers, have no agenda, but just sit down and really empathize with their situation and say, what can I do to support you? What more can I do for you? Always go in adding some value, connecting them with somebody, introducing them to something you don't know. The one thing I love about social media is the social listening. You can listen in. It's like listening into your neighbors and not getting caught. You've got to do your research so that you're going in with value and then use that as an opportunity to get closer to them.
Oh, Janice, it has been so fabulous to have you here today. I cannot thank you. I cannot thank you enough. Scale Your Sales, JaniceBGordon.com. We're going to wrap this up, put this out there on social media, but I really encourage you. Gosh, you publish some really great content and you have some really valuable information out there for our audience. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of Thrive. And we'll see you next week with another guest, another set of strategies, and everything that you need to know to turn all of this uncertainty into your competitive advantage. See you next week.